Right, the rocker cover gasket's been fitted. You get grooves all the way around here, and this gasket can only go on one way. You've got a wider fitting at there, which is the front of the engine, and a smaller fitting here. So as I say, the gasket can only be fitted one way. You can't get it round the wrong way. Be careful when you're putting the rocker cover back on, because this can come undone. It's got two small holes that this presses onto, and just be careful, as I say, when you're installing this, because if that does come out, it could fall down the middle of the cam chain and cause all sorts of other damage. So and then just make sure that all the surfaces, the mating surfaces, are nice and clean and dust free before we put this in place. Right, with your rocker cover put back in position, and you've checked underside to make sure that the camshaft chain guide is still in place and it hasn't fallen through the middle of the engine. Your gasket's all seated nicely. What we want to do next is put some black sealant around these areas here to improve the sealing on the gasket, and we do that on both sides. I found it easier to just lift the rocker cover up using a wedge of some sort. I've just put a screwdriver in there for now with a rubber handle, and I'm just going to apply a little bit of sealant in each one, and then I'll remove the screwdriver and just drop the rocker cover gasket into there, and then that way I'm not sliding it in all over the place and making a big mess. You can use 3-bond, or if you can't get hold of 3-bond, I've got this Loctite black silicone gasket sealant, which will do the job exactly the same. When assembling these washers onto the bolts, I noticed that there's a little cutout just there, one around the other side. I think there's 3 in total, and I positioned the cutouts to the underside of the bolt, and then flip them over so there were no cutouts on that side, but the cutouts were around the edge. It's hard to see in this light, but you'll get the picture anyway. And then when you put these into the location, just ensure that the area that you're putting them, the seat, is all nice and clean, and you've got rid of all of the dirt and debris that collects there. Right, so the next stage is to fit the reed valve covers, PAR assembly. Again, just make sure that's all nice and clean in there, and then set them over the top, and we need to apply a small bit of thread lock onto the threads to make sure that they don't vibrate loose. Once you've tightened up the bolts on the reed valve covers, put the hose back on and pull the clip over with the pliers. Do the same for the other one, and then put your electrical connector back onto the solenoid, and then just connect this last hose back to the breather box, and then we'll tighten it up, and then we'll pull this circlip over with the pliers and just tighten that up too. Right, next we're going to put the coils back onto the spark plugs. I numbered mine as I removed them: 1, 2, 3 and 4, and I shall just put them back in exactly the same place as I took them out. With the 4 coils pressed back home, you can't mistake that noise when they click home and secure nicely onto the top of the spark plug. We just got to make the connections and push these electrical connectors back home. And then the last one just under here. There's not a lot of room to work. Alright, and that's them all home, nice and secure, pressed down firmly. On to the next step. Just about to fit the thermostat housing. We've put the hoses on. You've got this hose here, the big one, and that runs down under the fairing and goes onto the top of your radiator on the right hand side there with a green dot, and up the top is the white dot, if I can find it. It's down there somewhere. There it is. And then you've got two white dots on these that come off the engine block, and they go down just in front of the throttle bodies. And that particular one there, that's where the green dot goes. I'll go around the other side. And there's the other one. It's quite straightforward. You've got this small hose that comes off the top left hand side of the radiator, and that fits onto this small fitting on the left hand side of the thermostat housing. These two hoses connect onto these two, and the big hose connects straight onto this big black plastic fitting here. So connect all them up and then tighten up the Jubilee clips. That's all the hoses connected to the thermostat housing. Tightened up those two, connected that one from the left hand side of the radiator. This one here comes from your expansion tank, that heads off towards the seat area. And this one in here, I found it easier to leave that bolt and that bolt on the thermostat housing loose, so you could just pull this one forward, tighten that up with your screwdriver, and once you're happy with it, then we can put these two bolts back in place and fix that. And that's tighten those last two bolts. Alright, that's those two tightened up, everything's all secure, and we're ready to go to the next stage, and that's to fill up. I've just got to tighten this bolt here and this one down there. I've changed my thermostat while I'm at this stage, because I tested mine in a pot of hot water, and I found it was opening very, very slowly, around about 88 degrees centigrade, and it should really be opening quite nicely at 82. So I think it's a bit sluggish, and probably whilst I've got all this empty at this stage, it's best time to change it, save having to do this all again later. Fitting the fuel hose is quite straightforward. They're simply a push fit. You press these two fittings either side to release, and it's simply a case of just pushing them, and you hear them click, and then just pull them back, make sure that they're sitting on there nicely, and then your fuel hose routes around the thermostat housing, and this then connects to the underside of the pump on the bottom of the petrol tank. Here's my training mechanics. That's Roscoe and Evie on the right hand side there. This is the coolant that I used, and it comes ready mixed. I did a full coolant change earlier on in the summer, and as this is 4 litres, it left me quite a fair bit in the bottom there for carrying some spare in my top box for topping up should I need it, and I shall use a bit more today when I fill up the system.